Hi, it's me, from the future, or the past. I decided to retroactively brand this video and put it in a series I like to call Crimes Against Criticism. This will be the first video in the series, of course, and it will be centered around critiquing the reviews of series and movies and just, anything, before I do an actual review of the product. Anyways, continue on to the video. Have a nice day. Oh, Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's a movie I don't understand the fervor for. It's long and dumb, and it's only there to get the fans riled up about the DCEU, which is in shambles, by the way, depending on what rumor you decide to read about. We'll come back to this. Regardless of any outside context or canonical spin-offs and origin stories, this movie is really bad. It is pretty at times, and unintentionally hilarious at others. There are moments in this film that leave me scratching my head at all the fans tweeting and hashtagging for Snyder's universe to be restored. Yeah, good luck on that one, guys. We'll also come back to this one, don't you worry. The discourse that goes on between the fans that think this movie is the second coming of Jesus Christ and normal people, moviegoers with genuine criticisms, it's kind of confusing.
People really do seem to be annoyed by the cliffhangers that are in this movie. Like I said, it was supposed to set up the entire DCEU, as well as the sequels that were supposed to come after this. So I'm not surprised that it's quote-unquote sequel baiting.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Moviegoers with genuine criticisms often get thrown into the movie is too deep for you to understand, or just look at what he's trying to do category. Zack's building a multi-film arc for you to understand why he's got the caped crusader murdering criminals in droves.
You know, I tried to do it in that sort of technical way, right?
He's got a tweet lined up for why Superman is just slaughtering unborn children of his species. Or better yet, Krypton had its chance.
Don't ask questions.
There's a distinct metaphorical significance There's a distinct metaphorical significance for the shot of Batman's naked ass. These films can't be bad or indulgent, right? It's his vision. His artistic direction, yeah? You've felt emotion, and that deems his work to be solid, especially on the grounds of writing. Or does it? God forbid if the movie's plot had shaky foundations and contrivances that pulled people out of this pretentious, manipulative, sequel-baiting mess. And oh God forbid the Whedon cut have scenes between characters that reveal some background to why they struggle with becoming a leader, or a sense of grief and penance, or even a little interesting details that provide some common sense, or depth to the characters, or some humanity. God, the humanity. But hey, look, we've got Darkseid. He's got a unique character design that sets him apart from the rest of the DCEU villains. Kinda. He's intimidating and leagues above our heroes in terms of presence and power. Kinda. He's great. His voice is gravelly and he strikes fear into the eye. Nah, I'm just kidding. He's a bit of a bitch. I'm not here to pretend like this was a massive improvement on the Justice League, or that it was even a good film. There are massive problems, holes, and missing character beats with a nice dose of continuity issues to boot. I won't be going over all of them because hell's bells I'd be here for a long time. I'll certainly point out a few though, like Darkseid. He and his hyper-advanced, space-faring civilization just happened to forget about the one planet that defied him and also mortally wounded him. Oh, or when Batman and the Justice League don't have any sort of backup plan if Superman comes back at least a tad bit hostile. It isn't like he had a perfectly intact kryptonite spear that's capable of weakening Kryptonians on a molecular level. No. Or how about Cyborg just not deactivating the superheated laser that kills his father? He was stated to be jacked into any electronic system in the world. It bends to his will, as his dad explains to him. Or when Barry Allen uses his super speed, disintegrating his shoes in the process, but not his clothes? A lot of the world building in these movies is terrible anyway. Save your time, don't watch them. What irks me more about it is that a lot of the reviews for this movie are even more lazy. Disingenuous, even. Well, I can't really prove that. I can't really prove their intent, so let's go with, willfully ignorant, I guess? Maybe? Yeah, willfully ignorant, yeah. Some reviewers seem to think that the quality of writing doesn't matter. Some reviewers lie about the information in the movie in order to promote restoring Zack Snyder's position in production. Some reviewers intentionally misinterpret criticisms to make negative reviewers seem nonsensical. Some reviewers think that defending Joss Whedon's cut is defending Joss Whedon's personal and very inappropriate actions unrelated to the plot and the quality of his crappy version of the film. Oh no, and this is by no means me saying the Whedon cut is worse than the Snyder one. They're both garbage. One just sucks more and is longer. Some reviewers dismiss wide swaths of criticisms by claiming they're just Marvel fanboys and shills, and that they just aren't grown up enough to understand these deep and mature films. And some reviewers are just ridiculous. Take Tex, for example. He makes low-effort videos about how so many people are either wrong about the Snyder Universe or didn't understand the films in it. And he made a video defending the length of Joker's, hair? Of course, this isn't the only content he produces, but the vast majority of it tends to lean towards that message. And that's fine, honestly. Thinking these movies are great is fine. No one can take that enjoyment away from you. It is your opinion, after all. Those same opinions can also be incorrect, objectively, and it is quite charming when people find ways to enjoy these dumpster fires. However, it's ridiculous how people praise this film for its writing and cohesion, as if it's a step above the version released in 2017, then willingly ignore the events of the Whedon cut that actually improve on both the continuity of Justice League and the universe as a whole.
And there were a couple scenes where I thought, why did they reshoot it in the first place? Because the original scene would have worked better than the reshot one, like this one.
Take that as a yes.
What?
The ring.
Are you okay? You brought us here, but you've hardly spent a minute in the house.
Just got out of a wooden box.
Tex says the scenes work better from Zack Snyder's cut, and he references the farm scene with Lois and Clark, but he proceeds to not show or explain how they work better. He cuts them up and only leaves the most superficial parts of the two conversations in. Ironically, he's pulled what he's accused the good old Warner Brothers of doing to his precious Snyder cut. Let me explain. The scene from the Joss cut, the Justice cut, the Justice Joss 27, whatever, in its entirety, provides some characterization for Lois and Clark with their respective experiences following his death and resurrection. Lois feels ashamed for not living up to her ideals, and as she's beginning to express that, he feels for her and then consoles her. They both acknowledge the mistakes they've made, and Clark vows to make things right. He knows why he's returned, and he knows it's to put things back right. The Snyder scene, also in its entirety, has Clark saying yes to marriage to Lois, a detail that was carried over from BVS. He also tells her he isn't wasting his second chance, and after kissing her and hugging his mother, that he also needs to figure out why he's here. Now give me a second to think about these two scenes, or at least talk about them. What's lost from Whedon's cut to Snyder's is that bit about Lois. Important because she isn't that strong of a character in either version of the film, and it would make sense for her to have some emotional reaction to her lover being brought back from the grave, other than, oh, here's your stuff. It strengthens the terribly weak relationship built across these movies. Seriously, why do they love each other? This relationship that supposedly binds Superman to his sanity is not fleshed out in either of his movies. Although his actions may contradict what she sees as an example to strive towards, it is good to see why she's attracted to the Man of Steel, and it's even greater to see that his loss caused the grief so deep she's essentially lost herself. And we get to have Superman actually describe, albeit in a slightly comedic way, how strange coming back from literal death has been. But most importantly, this scene speaks to how much his presence and attitude can affect others. He even recognizes his mother, which is a neat little detail, whether he uses his super hearing to detect her truck or her heartbeat. In Snyder's version, it seems those details aren't present. The most we get in terms of character are things we already knew. He loves his mother, and he loves Lois enough to marry her, which is already in the Whedon scene. She's fiddling with her ring. Another nod to the lost proposal. At least you get to see him playing with a butterfly, and the rubber lip isn't there, so that must mean the writing is better, right? The next example Tex goes to is the Wonder Woman scene.
Or when Wonder Woman makes her entrance, they changed the fight choreography for no reason. I guess the goal was to make sure the product came out as shitty as possible.
Oh boy, this scene in the Snyder Cut massively screws with the continuity of the films that claim to be canon. Wonder Woman goes out of her way to not kill in 1984, and then the Whedon Cut happened to line up with that. Also, she kills the self-described terrorists. Yes, they refer to themselves as terrorists. Yet she uses her most powerful move against the gunman that could have easily been disarmed. In the Snyder Cut, he shows the whole side of the court being blasted onto the first responders. Very heroic. It is almost like Joss Whedon saw this and decided to cut away. He decided to have cuts that removed the blood splatters and massive, unnecessary destruction. The scene is still goofy, seeing as she moves in bullet time, yet doesn't just move towards the terrorist. Instead, she uses her super speed to skitter across the ground horizontally instead of charging the guy. It looks like Whedon cut up parts that screwed with canon because he wanted to make it as shitty as possible. Or he cut out fluff that padded the movie's runtime. But oh, you loved the score, right? We just absolutely needed the song of them walking up the stairs. Jeez. Hell's bells, maybe that was the scene that 60% of people decided to stop on. He also says that the theatrical cut ruined Batman and reduced him to a joke.
Batman was a joke in the theatrical version. They fucking ruined him.
Were we watching the same movie? Granted, he has some terrible jokes in 2017's version. It's not like that isn't the same with the Snyder cut.
Man, if we're gonna do this, you're gonna need to be open to more things that we haven't. Yeah.
Sorry. That's okay.
He actually serves a greater purpose than that film. Bruce has a heart-to-heart with Diana, his missing time is accounted for, and the movie actually shows his mortality. It shows the risks he takes in attempting to lead this team of gods as a man. He even undercuts one of the dumbest lines in both films.
Strong man as strong as alone. You ever heard that?
That's not a saying. That's the opposite of what the saying is.
Tex only really talks about what happens and says whether it's good or bad without actually explaining why. Yet fans and fanatics of these films can take a line out of context and extract the whole universe of meaning that doesn't even correlate with the rest of the film or the characters within them. Much like the way these movies are advertised and produced, much more emphasis is placed on style over substance. Why does Superman wear black? Because it was in the comics? Does it actually serve any part in this story? Do they actually bother explaining the significance of the colors or what effect it might have on Superman? No, it just looks really cool, guys. Steppenwolf goes under an entire redesign. His armor looks much different, if not a little bit silly. The Flash running to save a civilian is visually pleasing to an extent. Why aren't his clothes exploding into several billion pieces? His shoes did. We don't really care about any of these people that he's saving, which isn't a bad thing entirely. He's a hero. He's supposed to save people. But he strokes her hair because, I mean, I guess? It's cool and interesting to see what both the Flash and Cyborg can do, but both their abilities break the story and the stakes within them. There's no real reason why the team should worry about failing, and there shouldn't be that much of a problem when it comes to taking down the Dome in the finale. After all, Cyborg has access to nukes and military arsenals. Shouldn't really be a problem, but we wanted our team shot. Don't think about it, just keep clapping.
I think the reason most people think Darkseid is the knockoff is because the MCU built up Thanos since 2012 and showed glimpses of him until 2018. So most people were exposed and shown Thanos first and was part of the mainstream for years.
Maybe don't have your big bad villain of the entire universe get slapped up in his first physical appearance. He gets zapped by Zeus, and he's hauled away after leaving him and his wizard open to field fire and flying fucking axes. And oh yeah, this scene features a Green Lantern using constructs like hammers instead of the Whedon cut, which only has him shoot oh, that's right, that is the Whedon cut that has a lantern actually using lantern powers in a creative way. Funny. Darkseid is bleeding and dragged away from the battlefield after placing himself front and center to the gods, the Amazons, the Atlanteans, and the world of men, who really shouldn't even be there realistically, or at least they should be in positions that are tactically viable instead of running alongside gods and monsters and sea people. Thanos, on the other hand, was not reduced to a pathetic bleeding pile of weakness when we first see him. Rather, he's almost always portrayed as brooding and physically dominant in his first appearances. He kept track of all the MacGuffins he needed to snap his fingers. Stones that were separated by literal solar systems. If anything, he was persistent in his attempts to acquire the Mother the Infinity Stones. Darkseid wants his anti-life equation more than anything, but he just gets humiliated and forgets about it. I'm sorry, is this not your ultimate goal? Is this not the sole reason you've reduced 100,000 worlds to dust for? Is it not that important anymore? How did you, with your space-faring civilization, your science too advanced it was indistinguishable from magic civilization, forget about this one planet The one planet that drove you back. The one planet that defied you. You, Darkseid, and your civilization advanced enough to spawn mother boxes and teleportation tubes. Foolish enough not to fucking chart the one planet that had the one thing you were searching for. Oh no, the plot needs to happen in Justice League, so that is the way it is.
Just consume product and then get excited for next products.
Don't ask questions, just consume. Fuck that. What happened to the villains that were logical, ruthless? What happened to the villains who made us consider who the real bad guys are? What happened to the villains that were intimidating and unrelenting in the pursuit of their goals? What happened to the layers of context and history that gave the audience a chance to understand why the antagonists were on a road opposite our heroes? Now we have the big, gray, boring, goofy, cringe-inducing, computer-generated blobs. Oh yeah, Omega Beams. These criticisms aren't hard to make unless you're hell-bent on defending the movie just because you found it to be personally enriching, of course. Or your identity, or even large swaths of your fan base, is tied to being a Snyder bro. I know for a fact that the quality of writing is something people like this have been able to identify. You can see it in his videos. You've made arguments in favor of it before. You've criticized movies for information that hinders characters in service of the plot. I know you can sit and think about the movies you review. You've done it with Wonder Woman, but you've watched this slog of a movie 5 times.
This was a great movie. I really enjoyed it, and I'm working on my 5th rewatch.
20 hours of seeing this movie and you haven't picked up on any of the issues that break this movie into its ugly pieces. You willfully ignore the criticisms that largely refute the claims of a film masterpiece, and ridicule the worst and easiest to disprove gripes about the film. Nah, they're just nitpicks. It's not like Darkseid's amnesia facilitates the plot of the film in its entirety. It's not like Barry Allen's ability to reverse time on a whim destroys any stakes in the film. It's not like the death of Cyborg's father could have been easily avoided. It's not like the resurrection of Superman and the subsequent attempted murder of his team is just forgotten about. Like the Flash would have had any reconsiderations about the team or being a hero when his idol almost incinerates him and kills soldiers. It's not like it's a big deal for Cyborg or Wonder Woman or Batman or the civilians of Metropolis when it happens. It's not like the whole situation could have been avoided by the Flash picking up the damn mother box. He's faster than sound. It's not like it's never brought up again. Surely this movie raises interesting questions and provides answers that make sense according to the characters that were written in the universe. The intelligence of characters aren't dropped just to make sure a scene happens.
Doesn't it just suck when the setup for your story is so full of contrivances that the foundation that your plot is built upon is made up of jelly? It sure is great to know that we're willing to criticize all stories with these sorts of issues, even when we like them.
Gee, thanks, Southpaw. I really needed that. Why should I care about the fragility of these characters? Or more appropriately, the vulnerability of them? Like Batman, for example. Why should I care if he's getting lasered to death by zombie Superman if the Flash can just run him out? Or reverse time? Why is Batman taking a risk to destroy the alien dome surrounding Steppenwolf in the finale if Cyborg can just remotely pilot the damn thing? What are the stakes in the final battle if Superman can just one-shot the big bad guy? If the Flash can just run back in time? Steppenwolf, who's been tossing Amazonians around the entire movie, gets slapped around like a fly. Why should I really care? How should I feel if Superman is smiling, lasering the alien that's about to destroy the planet? When you see heroes get hurt and scarred and even killed, it shows they're not invincible. There are stakes. They have something to lose, ultimately being their life. And the audience should root for them, relate to them. In a good movie, our protagonists aren't plot breakers. Their IQ isn't dropped to room temperature whenever the plot needs them to. They're consistent, and the plot forms around them. It doesn't disrespect or contradict their characters. They don't forget about life-altering events, traumatic experiences. Characters act in accordance of their motivations, their desires, and their fears. You don't really get that amount of depth or nuance or just attention to detail in a movie like this, especially if it's coming from Snyder. Remember what I said about the hype? Yeah, we're coming back to it now. The scene in particular that really just drew me out of this viewing experience, if you want to call it that, was the Martian Manhunter Martha scene. Imagine having a good scene between two characters that desperately needed some development, only to have it cut short in such a weird way. Why would he transform in the hallway? Why would he transform twice? Why would he do this? What benefit does it provide to Martha or Amy Adams Lois Lane? Was this really in service of the story? Or was it just to get you clicking on Twitter Twitter with them thumbs. Send out your hashtags and tweets about how the Martian Manhunter was confirmed for canon in this movie. Never mind the implications that it has. It's not like he sat out of 2 world-ending events. 3 if you count Wonder Woman. What a coward. What a way to just discount a great scene between 2 characters. Obviously, it wasn't in service of the story. It added nothing. It only raised more questions. The answers you could give are almost all shitty ones.
Oh, son. Martian Manhunter.
People call you Martian Manhunter? Why don't you just tell them your fucking name, you green mongoloid? You fringy wannabe. This scene takes more than it gives, and it doesn't give much. It provides a little insight to Lois Lane's character, but Martha's just left out for this glorified shitty CG cameo by a character that doesn't matter. It's such a sour way to end this scene, which was quite nice, until Zack Snyder decided to inject it with some weirdly out-of-place fan service. Speaking of weirdly out-of-place fan service, let's talk about the reach-around scene. The scene is actually really quite odd. It's so unnecessary. It drags the movie and it pads the runtime. Oh wow. Who would have guessed? At least we get to see Batman say the F word. Zack Snyder's Justice League is a terribly written, overindulgent 4-hour commercial for a universe people won't see, with characters that go through arcs only to ignore them or have them contradicted. Relationships that don't make sense, don't matter, or are as shallow as a puddle. I never knew memory retention was one of them. The video I made is really just to point out some of the hypocrisy and tism surrounding the review cycle of this movie. A lot of it doesn't track, and is just subjective junk. Never really comparing the 2 films in their entirety, or taking a look at how badly butchered these characters are in both versions of the film. It just sucks. Zack Snyder, or Warner Brothers, whoever, I don't care. Start over. These characters deserve fucking better. Anyways, that's all I had to say. For now. See you later, I guess.